Hey everybody, welcome to Ecker Geopolitics. It's May 12th, 2026, and today we're covering the Iran war, Trump's statements on the American economy and how he really doesn't care that much about American financials and how that affects the average American. We're going to cover that clip and the Truth Social statements made, as well as the market, potential market crash. There's potentially a stock market crash when we look at the history of Cisco and everything that's happening with Nvidia today. So a lot of big things, a lot of big news. And we're going to cover also everything else in the news today, the Hantavirus and everything else that's following. What do you guys think is coming for the future of America? Do you think that there's going to be a stock market crash? Do you think that it's possible that maybe Trump truly is serving at the behest of Israel? Who is right at the end of this? In my opinion, I think we're looking at potentially a very dangerous game. So we're going to look at all of the news, and let's jump right into it. Be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, and support the information, and let's dive right in. Iran war live updates. Trump says Iran must make a deal or face renewed attacks. We have that news. We also have ads. No, Pete Hegseth takes heat from Republicans in back-to-back hearings. 5 takeaways from that. We're going to cover that. Also, Kash Patel was also questioned in Congress today, and he was riddled and got some pretty interesting clips there. And then as well as that, we have Iran threatening to teach a lesson if the U.S. attacks. Trump says ceasefire is on life support. That was said yesterday. And then the Washington Post covered how the EU put sanctions on Israeli settlers after Hungary drops Orban's veto. A lot of Europe is totally in flames right now. The Dutch government, or really, I would to better say the native people of the Netherlands, are essentially burning down illegal immigration shelters in those places. And really, the war is cooking. The war is cooking. Okay, so this entire EU sanction is affecting also Russia. And again, speaking of Russia and Ukraine, Russia ended up carrying out strikes on Ukraine, and then Ukraine later struck back. So Ukraine says Russia launches 200 plus drones in overnight attack, leaving 6 dead. And then on top of that, we also have the Ukrainians hitting back in retaliation, Ukraine hitting Russia's distant gas facilities after Moscow's attack kills 6. On top of that, we're also going to be covering a little bit of the clarity at the stock market, the S&P 500 slipping from records on Tuesday as the chips rally and takes a breather as inflation comes in hot, as well as the crypto markets. We have a lot of news with crypto. We have a lot of news with the Clarity Act. That's coming. We're going to see what that happens. Apparently, May 14th is supposed to be the Senate markup date for the Clarity Act, which is supposed to be giving forward regulation for crypto. And it's supposedly going to help retail and both the banks and really all of the institutions. The SEC and the CFTC will have more regulatory guidance on everything that's happening with crypto and all of that. And of course, we'll be covering the oil markets a little bit, where we cracked over $107.50 per barrel on the Brent crude, as well as the WTI crude, where that broke $100 at $102.20. So a lot of big news today, a lot of big articles that we're going to be covering. And when we look at all of it, it is quite insane. We look at all of this and we really, who knows what's happening when it comes to the real truth. One thing we do know is that, we never really know what's going to happen. Okay. So again, we kind of went over the articles that we're going to cover, but of course my screen had to freeze and we are never able to do what we got to do. Hegseth takes heat from the Republicans, back-to-back hearings. And again, we're going to cover all of this news. A lot of big headlines to cover today, a lot of big information that we're going to cover, and we're going to cover all of it. Okay. So what do you guys think about everything that's in the news today, May 12th, 2026? I think the World War III agenda is only heating up. And I think the economy is going to take a hit. I think the stock market is showing signs of a potential drop. And with all of it, I think crypto might just be the last source of income for the average person. So we got a lot of news to cover today. Let's start with some articles. Let's start with these headlines and read kind of what's going on. Iran stuck to its most recent demands after President Trump dismissed them as unacceptable. As Mr. Trump left for a summit in China, he told reporters the war was very much under control. The latest, as he departed from China on Tuesday, President Trump sought to assuage concerns for the ceasefire with Iran in peril, telling reporters at the White House that we have an Iran very much under control. But he also reiterated that we're either going to make a deal or they're going to be decimated. Again, very big words by Trump, very, very impactful words, influential words that can shift this entire war. And I think it's just only going to be heating things up. Iran's government showed no signs of backing down from its hardline negotiating stance. On social media, Kazem Jarababadi, a deputy foreign minister, said Iran's position was that any peace deal must include reparations for Iran, Iranian sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz, and to end the U.S. sanctions. So, as well as an earthquake that shook Tehran, where nerves are already badly stained by war. Kind of makes you wonder, is there a little bit of weather modification going on? Possibly a very strong potentiality. A modern earthquake shook Tehran, a city on edge after months of war, with residents in different parts of the city saying they felt the ground jolt and roll around midnight. Maybe that was bombs. Maybe that was special ops, you know. Tehran, the sprawling capital of Iran with 15 million residents, sits on or near several fault lines and occasionally is hit with earthquakes. We shook as if we were in a swing, said Sabur, a resident of Tehran, in a text message. So again, when we look at these other articles, again, we kind of had corroborating stories. A lot of the media is covering a lot of this. And again, Hegseth today gave his testimony in Congress. He's been getting grilled by Congress. But at the same time, even Lindsey Graham was grilling Pete Hegseth for all of this because, of course, Lindsey Graham wants the war to keep going on. Republicans in the House and Senate vented their frustrations with the Pentagon on Tuesday using a pair of back-to-back hearings to press Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth on the Iran war, President Trump's unusual plan to fund the Defense Department, spending priorities, and America's dwindling munitions stockpiles. The hearing comes as the U.S.-Israeli war in Iran stretches into its 11th week, with the Strait of Hormuz still closed and no apparent off-ramp in the sight, even as Trump seeks a peaceful agreement. Republicans questioned plan to fund the Pentagon. Republicans in both the House and Senate pressed Hegseth on Trump's mammoth $1.5 trillion Pentagon budget request, appearing skeptical of a proposal to fund $1.1 trillion through the regular appropriations process and another $350 billion through a reconciliation bill. Budget reconciliation is a process that Republicans could use to bypass a Democratic filibuster in the Senate, but it is difficult and time-consuming, and a number of Republicans had previously expressed doubts about their ability to pass a third such bill after using their second shot at it to pass immigration enforcement funding. Representative Ken Calvert, the chair of the House Appropriations Subpanel, noted that the questions persist. The subcommittee needs to understand how the resources requested this budget translation into real, measurable improvements in warfighting capability, Calvert adding that he has serious concerns about the Pentagon's method for funding. Hegseth replied that there's a reality in this town of what can get done and how it gets done. In a perfect world, everything would get done in a regular order and with a $1.5 trillion top line, but there are a lot of challenges and dynamics, some of which I don't control. So we have $1.5 trillion for this war, but we can't fund a border wall. We got $1.5 trillion for this war, but we can't use it for, mass deportations and a deportation moratorium. Can't do any of that. House Appropriations Committee Chair Tom Cole had similar concerns about the use of reconciliation to fund the Pentagon for the next fiscal year. I don't have any concerns about the amount. I am worried about the ability to sustain that number through the reconciliation process. At some point, the money disappears, Cole said. Well, it doesn't disappear because us, the American taxpayers, will be paying for it, right? Later, the Senate Appropriations Defense Subcommittee hearing, Chair Mitch McConnell hammered Hegseth over the plan, objecting to leaving crucial Pentagon programs such as the Golden Dome missile defense system, munitions, the F-35 fighter jet, and drone production outside the normal reconciliation process. Political realities will not always allow a party-line budget reconciliation, and if the department's top priorities aren't built into annual appropriations, we're actually taking a big risk, McConnell said in his opening statement. He's like 90 years old. Why is he even why does he matter to this conversation? Have you guys seen the videos of Mitch McConnell? He'll literally just he'll sit there completely just doe-eyed. The guy is just so old. He should not even be doing this still. I don't know why he even has a say. Hegseth came coy on Iran Hormuz strategy. Under intense questioning from several Senate lawmakers, both Hegseth and Joint Chiefs of Staff Chair General Dan Kane repeatedly declined to offer any hint of the U.S. strategy in Iran or how leaders plan to deal with the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. It seems that there has been a different plan almost daily with dealing with this problem, Senator Susan Collins said of the blockade of the Strait. After Hegseth claimed that the U.S. ultimately controls the vital shipping corridor, Senator Chris Coons repeatedly asked what the administration's strategy was for reopening the Strait to commercial shipping. If we control it, how do we reopen it? Hegseth shot back that Coons was being highly disingenuous and ignoring the U.S.'s incredible battlefield successes. Later, under questioning from Senator Chris Murphy, Hegseth said the U.S. most certainly has military means by which they could open the strait, declining to go into detail. Why haven't you done it? Why haven't you done it if it's true? And that's not what has been testified to us in previous briefings, Murphy said. Hegseth responded that the U.S. would prefer a long-term strategy to reopen the strait, but that we certainly have a lot more military pressure we can bring to bear if the president were to choose to do so. Yeah, on our funding, $1.5 trillion. Let that sink in. That's a lot of money. That is a ton of money, as a matter of fact, and we are $39 trillion in debt. I don't understand how they expect to pay this war unless we are doing this specifically, again, at Israel's bequest. Later, when questioning Kane, Murphy asked how many missiles the Pentagon assessed Iran to still have, pointing to Trump's comments from last week when he said Tehran maybe had 18 to 19% of capacity left. U.S. intelligence agencies, however, reportedly found that Iran still has 70% of their missile and drone capability. How do we or the American public access the success of the mission when you've stated publicly the purpose of the mission is to destroy their missile and drone capability? How do we assess whether we should continue funding how do we continue funding this if you can't state that? Murphy asked. All of our battle damage assessment matters are classified, and it would be inappropriate for me to comment in this forum on that, Kane replied. I appreciate the question, but I'm not going to answer it. So again, for obvious reasons, of course, the military-industrial complex is not going to tell you their plans. Why would they do that when this is a war of attrition and this is a war where they truly want to decimate the entire state of Iran, the sovereign state of Iran? And at the end of the day, this will be at the American taxpayers' expense when really we also understand that Iran basically has no nuclear program. They don't have one. We've just been being told that as a precursor and an excuse to get into this war. Likewise, Hegseth declined to say when the Pentagon would provide Congress an estimate for forthcoming cost and funding for the war. Iran war price tag increases to $29 billion. Well, no, that's not true. It's apparently $1.5 trillion now. One new piece of information to come out of the hearings was the latest, and it just totally lost my spot. Okay, I'm just moving on to the next article. That's annoying. But we covered most of that. Live updates. Iran threatens to teach a lesson if the U.S. attacks. Trump says ceasefire is on life support. What to know about the Iran war today? After President Trump rejected Iran's response to the latest U.S. peace proposal and said the ceasefire is on life support, the Speaker of Iran's parliament said the Islamic Republic's military is ready to teach a lesson to any aggressor. U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, said Tuesday that Israel sent anti-missile batteries and personnel to the UAE to help protect the country from Iranian attacks, underlying a growing defense relationship between the two Middle Eastern countries bolstered by the Iran war. The cost of the war in Iran has grown to $29 billion, acting Pentagon Comptroller Jules Hurst said in a testimony on Tuesday. Secretary Pete Hegseth said last month it was $25 billion, but U.S. officials familiar with internal assessments suggested at the time the war could have already cost us close to $50 billion. So that's kind of the update on all of that. Trump says it is a virtual treason for media to say Iran is doing well in the war. President Trump said in a Truth Social post on Tuesday that it is a virtual treason for the news media to say that Iran is doing well in the war. When the fake news said that Iranian enemy is doing well militarily against us, it's virtual treason in that it is such a false and even preposterous statement, Mr. Trump said. They're aiding and embedding the enemy. All it does is give Iran false hope when none should exist. These are American cowards that are rooting against our country. Treason is defined in the U.S. Constitution as a crime when someone owing allegiance to the United States levies war against them or adheres to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort within the United States or elsewhere. Well, I think if we're talking about the word treason here, I honestly think absolutely Trump is guilty of treason right now. Some will say that he's being a hero fighting the Iran nuclear program that Netanyahu has been saying exists since 1967 and has not existed. But anyways, that's what Trump's been saying. And so we're supposed to believe that when Trump is basically saying that he doesn't care about the Americans' financial situation, I don't know what we're supposed to think otherwise. We haven't gotten mass deportations. We've gotten nothing out of Trump, or none of his voter base has gotten anything that they asked for. And listen, as a 3-time Trump supporter, I can honestly say the same thing. What have we gotten out of Trump? We've gotten nothing. And all of these deportations have not happened. And he's inflating the numbers. He's lying about a lot of these things. Okay? So when we look at some of these other articles, it kind of goes more in depth onto that. Thought this was interesting. The EU puts sanctions on Israeli settlers after Hungary drops Orban's veto. The measures will target Israeli settlers and organizations and Hamas members, the bloc's chief diplomat said. The European Union's foreign ministers agreed Monday to impose sanctions on Israeli settlers over violence against Palestinians after Hungary's new government lifted the country's veto. The decision, which required unanimity in the 27-nation bloc, will impose a travel ban and freeze assets of a group of Israeli settlers and organizations and sanctions on Hamas members. Former Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, a close ally of the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and also President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin, had long blocked the measure, but he was voted out of power in April. The decision of his successor, Peter Magyar, to drop the country's opposition ended a months-long deadlock. Violence and extremism carry consequences, said Kaja Kallas, the EU's chief diplomat. Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar said Israel firmly rejects the decision, which he described as unacceptable and without any basis. The EU drafted the sanctions last year amid the United Nations and independent rights group said was rising violence and expanding settlements in the occupied West Bank. Settlers have attacked farming communities, torched property, and sought to expel Palestinians. Yes, that is true. The sanctions are to take effect once legal and technical work is complete. The names of the people and organizations to be trusted have not yet made public. Kallas described them as Israeli extremist settlers and entities and leading Hamas figures. She said larger potential steps, including a French-Swedish proposal to halt trade with illegal Israeli settlements, still lack sufficient support among EU members. Netanyahu's government has supported the expansion of Israel settlements in the West Bank with a variety of measures. It has approved new settlements at a record rate, advancing building projects, and had been put on hold for decades, and approved a plan to resume land registration suspended 6 decades ago, under which Palestinians could be required to prove ownership predating the establishment of the Israeli state or forfeit their property. Whatever that means, right? That means just basically taking your land, taking your house. An EU initial proposal would have imposed sanctions on 2 Israeli cabinet members, key figures in which to annex the Palestinian territory. European officials say National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir and Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich have incited violence against Palestinians, but some EU members expressed reservations against targeting them. Relations between Israel and EU members, some of them longtime allies, have sourced in recent years over Israel's devastation of Gaza and more recently its invasion of Lebanon. As Israel's largest trading partner, the bloc had some leverage and it has been under pressure from lawmakers and the public to take action. But it has been hesitant and divided. Positions among the 27 members range from the stalwart support for Israel and Germany to the recognition of Palestinian statehood by France, Portugal, and others. Some countries, including Spain and Ireland, have accused Israel of genocide in Gaza and pushed the EU to suspend political and trade relations. The European Commission, the bloc's executive body, has proposed suspending some of the trade benefits Israel receives in the EU, such as reduced tariffs, but the approach has failed to gain sufficient support. Swedish Foreign Minister Malmer Stenengrad said Monday that the proposal with France to halt or limit trade with settlements would put more pressure on Israel. The International Court of Justice advised countries in 2024 to abstain from trade that perpetuates what it said was an illegal Israeli occupation of Palestinian territories. It is absolutely essential that we align ourselves with international law, Irish Foreign Minister Helen McEntee said Monday. She said she had seen a shift in which more EU members are trying to respond to what is just unacceptable behavior by Israel, which I also agree with that. Countries included Ireland, Spain, and the Netherlands, meanwhile, are moving ahead with national level trade bans. Xavier Bettel, Luxembourg's foreign minister, expressed frustration with more hesitant states. Some tell us that history means we are eternally indebted to Israel, but that is not an excuse. He told reporters before the meeting Thursday, "We can't accept simply closing our eyes." Ellen Francis contributed to this report. So again, I totally agree with that. So the Israeli settlers today are now being they're being sanctioned. So again, EU puts sanctions on Israel settlers on after Hungary drops Orban's veto. So Israel is finally being held accountable, at least by the states of Ireland and of really the European Union. Meanwhile, Ukraine says Russia launched 200 plus drones in overnight attacks, leaving 6 dead. Infant girl loses leg in Russian drone strike in Kryvyi Rih that also killed her and her grandparents, authorities say. Russian forces launched attacks in Ukraine's, I can't pronounce that. What is with these words today? Okay. Region on Tuesday, killing at least 6 people, regional officials said after the expiry of a U.S.-mediated ceasefire. Ukrainian officials said that Russia launched more than 200 drones overnight, putting an end to hopes that the 3-day ceasefire that ended Monday would be extended. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, meanwhile, said his country forces had struck gas facilities in Russia's central Orenburg region, more than 1,500 kilometers from its borders. A drone attack on an apartment building in Zelensky's hometown, the central Ukrainian city of Kryvyi Rih, killed 2 and injured 4, including the dead couple's 9-month-old granddaughter, regional governor Oleksandr Hanza, and the head of the military operation, Oleksandr Vikul, said on Telegram. The child's leg was severed, apparently. Russia continues to kill and maim Ukrainians, Zelensky says. Zelensky, also writing on Telegram, denounced the strike as cynical and devoid of all military logic. After the end of the partial 3-day ceasefire, Russia continues to kill and maim Ukrainians and pressure on it must therefore in no way be weakened, he said. Northeast of Kryvyi Rih, an aerial bomb strike killed 4 and injured 3, Hansa said. Ukraine and Russia has agreed to the ceasefire linked to anniversary of the Soviet victory over the Nazi Germany in the Second World War, part of a U.S.-led push for peace under U.S. President Donald Trump after more than 4 years of war. Trump said on Friday he hoped the truce would be extended. End of ceasefire deadline looms in Russia. Ukraine blames each other for continued attacks. Russia and Ukraine agree to a 3-day ceasefire and prisoner swap announced by Trump. Ukraine and Russia have been in the state of all-out war ever since Moscow launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February of 2022. Although neither side reported large-scale airstrikes during the ceasefire, both said fighting continued along the front line, accusing each other of drone and artillery attacks. Zelensky, speaking in his nightly video address, said that Kiev was working with its allies in Europe to develop technologies to defend against ballistic missiles, adding that 13 countries and NATO representatives had participated in talks on the issue on Tuesday. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Syabihah said Kiev has proposed extending the truce, but Moscow instead escalated by targeting civilian infrastructure with more than 200 drones. Kindergarten civilian locomotive damaged. Zelensky said drones were intercepted over several regions, but reported damage to energy facilities, apartment buildings, and kindergarten and civilian locomotive. In Kiev, debris from a downed drone fell on the roof of a 16-story residential building in the northern Obolon district, sparking a fire, Mayor Vitaly Kalchasko said. 2 people were hurt in the central Chervasky region, and damage was also recorded in Zhytomyr region, further west in Chernihiv region in the Russian border. 2 people were injured in strikes on the southeastern city of Dnipro and the southern city of Kherson. Russia drones also hit energy infrastructure in Mykolaiv region, causing blackouts in the region, regional governor Vitaly Kim said. Geez, that just kind of read weird to me. So again, that's crazy. Big story. And then Ukraine ended up hitting back. Ukraine hits Russia distant gas facilities after Moscow attacked SITS. Ukraine has struck gas facilities in southwest Russia's Orenburg region, more than 1,500 kilometers, which is about 932 miles, from the Ukrainian border, according to President Vladimir Zelensky. Zelensky said in the daily video address on Tuesday evening that the address was a retaliation for Russia's overnight attacks on Ukraine. Ukraine has said that we will act symmetrically in response to Russia, he said. Russia and Ukraine accuse the other of ceasefire violations. The EU and UK sanction Russians over deportations of Ukrainian children. And then Zelensky says Russia fired over 200 drones at Ukraine as truce expires. So when we look at all of this, these are crazy, crazy stories. And here's a little bit of video coverage on that.
These Russian soldiers are surrendering, not to a human, but to a robot. According to Ukrainian defense company DevDroid, this video from January shows one of its remotely operated, unmanned ground vehicles mounted with a machine gun capturing the troops. In April, Zelensky said Ukrainian forces had captured an enemy position exclusively using ground robots and drones. These machines carry ammunition and deliver food.
Wow.
Ukraine says it's carried out more than 22,000 robotic missions in just 3 months. The machines are also being armed. For now, humans are still largely in control. But it raises a bigger question. How much autonomy should and will be given to these machines?
Every bit.
When a human is involved in the process,
that's what they're already working on, brother.
AI is increasingly helping to shape decisions in war. In other conflicts, AI has already been used to identify targets, sometimes at a scale and speed that challenges meaningful human oversight.
Fundamental concept in international humanitarian law is proportionality. Is the amount of damage that you're inflicting upon the enemy proportional to the threat that you pose? And we're certainly seeing in Gaza huge collateral damage, huge number of civilian casualties.
So many people think that AI hasn't already taken over, that the Terminator 2 future has not come yet. Well, you're looking at it. All of these wars that are being perpetrated at the rate and the scale that they are has been because of artificial intelligence. Pretty scary to think about that we're already in the Terminator 2 timeline.
For a small number of military targets.
The risk is that humans remain involved in theory, but in practice, decisions are driven by systems they don't fully control or understand. And while technology moves fast, regulation struggles to keep up. There's still no global agreement on how these systems should be used or where the limits should be.
These concerns are legal, right, from an international humanitarian law perspective. They're ethical in the sense that is there enough time and enough space for deliberations and exercising
as we
human
can see,
judgment that's necessary in a context of warfare. And there are also security implications. I would also like to highlight those because AI systems are not fully reliable technologies.
Ukraine is becoming a testing
They're getting
ground.
better.
What we see on the front lines, we will likely soon see elsewhere.
If we're not careful, warfare will be a much more terrible, much more deadly, a much quicker, much faster thing.
It's already happening.
Humans can no longer actually really be participants in.
Experts say we are living in a time when it is essential that global institutions, governments, and humanity come together to quickly set parameters, norms, and red lines for how much autonomy these machines can be granted.
Yeah, for sure. And I definitely agree with that. The AI is taking over, and we are in the Terminator 2 timeline, 100%. So again, Zelensky said Ukraine had been attacked by more than 200 drones, which damaged energy facilities, apartment buildings, and kindergarten and civilian trains. He added that drones had been intercepted across 6 regions. So who really knows if this is all propaganda? I don't really trust Vladimir Zelensky myself. I think that this entire war that's been being pushed against Russia started by Ukraine. That's my opinion on that. And because I remember I was at Planet Fitness and I remember Ukraine striking Moscow, and that was years ago. And, ever since then, they started blaming it on Russia. See, what's happening right now, this Ukraine war is really our war against Russia. This is the United States and their war against Russia using Ukraine as a proxy. And that's really what this is. That's why you have Lindsey Graham and the warmongers pushing this more and more and more. And they're just insisting on literally signing the missiles that are being sent over there. So pretty crazy. Peace talks. On Saturday, Putin suggested that the war in Ukraine, which began more than 4 years ago, was nearing its end. The Kremlin reiterated that claim on Tuesday with spokesperson Dmitry Peskov saying progress made its talks in both the U.S. and Ukraine would soon bring the conflict to a close, while cautioning that it was too early to provide specifics. This accumulated groundwork in terms of peace process, allowing us to say that the completion is indeed approaching. Zelensky, however, disagreed. Of course, he disagreed. He wants to keep the war going. He disagreed a day earlier and warned that the Ukraine was preparing for further attacks. Russia had no intention of ending the war, and we are, unfortunately, preparing for new attacks, he said. Kaja Kallas, the European Union's foreign policy chief, said Putin's comments were a sign of weakness. What this statement really shows is that he's not in a strong position, she said. So I think there's an opportunity for ending the war. Talks aimed at ending the conflict have so far failed to achieve a significant breakthrough, stalling in recent months. U.S. President Donald Trump made ending what has become a war of attrition a key pledge during his 2024 election campaign. Is this going to happen? I don't really see that happening, though, right? On Tuesday, as he left the White House for a trip to China, Trump told reporters, "The end of the war in Ukraine, I really think it's getting very close." On Monday, the Kiev Independent newspaper reported that Washington was attempting to negotiate another temporary ceasefire that would include sanctions relief for Russia. Ukraine officials are reportedly concerned that the proposed agreement does not include security guarantees, which Kiev views as essential to deterring future aggression from Moscow. And you have to understand that the Russians do want to take much of Ukraine because Ukraine did used to belong to Russia. I mean, that was Russian territory for the longest time. And for the longest time, Ukraine had their tanks basically pointed on the Ukrainian-Russian border right at Russia, right at Moscow. And then, again, 4 years ago, we had the Ukrainians attacking the Kremlin, and this kicked off the entire war. This was when Biden was president. So you have to remember that. So how has this impacted the stock market? The S&P 500 slipped from record Tuesday as chips rally takes a breather and inflation comes in hot. The S&P 500 slipped on Tuesday, weighed down by losses in technology stocks and higher oil prices as traders reacted to a hotter than expected annual consumer price index reading for April. The broad market index was 0.16% lower, closing at $7,400.96, and the NASDAQ composite dropped 0.71% to $26,088.20. The Dow Jones Industrial Average advanced 56.09 points, or 0.11%, and ended at $49,760.50. Micron Technology, which led the S&P 500 and NASDAQ composite to record highs on Monday, reversed course, falling 3.6%. The stock soared more than 37% last week and around 53% last month amid a memory chip rally. Advanced Micro Devices and Qualcomm also dropped 2% and 11% respectively. In April, AMD surged more than 74%, while Qualcomm gained more than 39%. Meanwhile, West Texas immediate futures jumped 4.19% to settle at $102.18 per barrel. Brent crude settled up 3.42% at $107.77. I still think that the prices of oil could go far beyond $200 a barrel. I've been saying that since the beginning of the Iran war. That's kind of where I think that could go. So as we continue reading, in its latest counteroffer, Iran has insisted on war reparations, full sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz, the release of frozen Iranian assets, and the lifting of economic sanctions. With energy prices high, traders are giving close attention to the impact of the Iran war on inflation and consumer spending, which still accounts for about 2/3 of the economy. In April, the consumer price index rose 0.6%, putting the annual inflation rate at 3.8%, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. While the monthly increase in headline inflation was in line with expectations, economists polled by Dow Jones were calling for a gain of 3.7% from a year earlier. That annual inflation rate was the highest since May 2023. It isn't like it's an avalanche, but it's a steady move upward, Thomas Martin, senior portfolio manager at Global Investments, said to CNBC, adding that inflation is just going to keep on building. The longer the conflict in the Middle East continues amid a lack of progress in negotiations between the U.S. and Iran. Definitely see that happening. As these gas prices and other prices are higher, it's going to crimp more and more people. So the setup is for there to be continued struggles for the consumer, he said. CNBC's article, Anik Bao and Jeff Cox contributed reporting. So again, when we look at the crypto market and how this kind of impacts everything, crypto is kind of at neutral right now. Bitcoin's hanging at about $80,656, or $80,656.43 to be correct. Ethereum's at $2,282.70, and XRP's at $1.44. Solana hanging at about $94.64. Tron's at 34 cents. And Doge is at 10 cents, with Hyperliquid at $40.33. Cardano is at 27 cents. And when we look at Monero, that's at $411.76. Chainlink's at $10.30. Stellar Lumen's at 16 cents. And again, when we continue looking at all of these coins, what else is good? You know, HBAR at 0.09%. Again, that's a big Kevin O'Reilly, however you want to say it. He's a big fan of HBAR. And so when we look at all these different markets here in crypto, seems like the fear and greed index is at neutral, right about at 49. Okay, and we looked at oil a little bit. We covered those prices. Again, we're above $100 a barrel. A lot of people thought that we were going to be below $100 a barrel because of the Iran war ending, but Trump's been giving us a lot of doublespeak. And when he's making these statements, he's also making them on the weekends or right before the weekends. Very strategic timing for market manipulation also. So this is something to think about. So when we look at investors.com, we look at the Clarity Act a little bit relating to crypto. And again, that's coming May 14th. We're going to hear a Senate markup hearing date. That's going to be huge because this is going to be really telling us the future of what's going to be happening with crypto, with regulation. And again, a lot of people have their money invested in crypto, right? The Senate Banking Committee late Tuesday released the full text for the Digital Market Clarity Act ahead of the critical markup hearing on Thursday. Cryptocurrency stocks retreated Tuesday as the price of Bitcoin hovered above $80,000. The Senate Banking Committee overnight released an updated 309-page text for the Clarity Act, which members of the crypto industry were previously allowed to review privately. The bill reflects serious, good faith work across the committee and delivers the certainty, safeguards, and accountability Americans deserve, Banking Committee Chair Tim Scott said in a news release with the text. It puts consumers first, combats illicit finance, cracks down on criminals and foreign adversaries, and keeps the future of finance here in the United States. Now is time to move forward. Stablecoins and yield payments for holding stablecoins, but still permits some activity based on transaction-based rewards and incentives. The legislation bans reward payments solely in connection with the holdings of payment stablecoins, or on a payment stablecoin balance in a manner that is economically or functionally equivalent to the payment of interest or yield on an interest-bearing bank deposit. That's really for Coinbase. That is what Brian Armstrong, the CEO of Coinbase, that was kind of his reason to halt the entire Clarity Act. That's why we didn't get it in April. It got pushed forward because they wanted to have this conversation of, protecting their yields and that 30% yield. So basically, you as the retailer, you invest in crypto, you withdraw your profits, Brian Armstrong gets 30%. And that's kind of how that goes. But the Clarity Act in its current form creates an exemption for rewards or incentives based on bona fide activities or bona fide transactions that are not economically or functionally equivalent to the payment of interest or yield on an interest-bearing bank deposit. Again, we kind of already read that. However, that still isn't enough for some banking trade groups who petitioned the committee with last-minute opposition. The American Bankers Association, Bank Policy Institute, Consumer Bankers Association, and 3 other trade groups on Friday sent a letter to Banking Committee leadership arguing the bill's current language still opens the door for yield-like rewards programs, Crypto in America reported. Other Clarity Act provisions. More broadly, the Clarity Act outlines definitions, disclosure requirements, exemptions, and rulemaking activities for digital assets, transactions, and network tokens. The language works to update securities law to apply to digital asset activities while applying insider trading laws and ethics provisions. The Clarity Act includes consumer safety, reporting standards, and know your customer provisions to combat illicit finance. The bill also calls for studies on cybersecurity standards, financial stability risks for decentralized finance, and digital asset mixers, and foreign adversary activities according to section-by-section summary. The Clarity Act states tokenized securities are still securities for regulatory purposes and will generally receive the same treatment as the securities they represent under the SEC authority. The bill requires the SEC to study the regulatory treatment of tokenized securities, including custody standards, consumer protection, and cross-border coordination. To prepare for future threat of quantum computing, the Clarity Act creates the voluntary adoption of National Institute of Standards of Technology, the NIST, post-quantum cryptography standards. Clarity Act path forward. The long-awaited meeting comes after U.S. Senator Thomas Tillis and Angelina Alsobrooks earlier this month appeared to have brokered a compromise regarding stablecoin rewards. After months of painstaking negotiations with stakeholders, the updated Clarity Act language is a bipartisan compromise that will provide regulatory certainty needed to foster innovation in the United States, Senator Tillis said in a Tuesday news release. The Senate Banking Committee on Thursday will hold up its markup hearing on the Clarity Act market structure bill and following multiple delays. The committee scheduled its executive session for 10:30 a.m. Eastern, the calendar shows. Thursday's hearing will feature debates on changes to the legislation. However, the Banking Committee must still reconcile its version of the Agriculture Committee's version. From there, the bill needs floor time ahead of Congress Memorial Day's recess on May 21st. Senator Bernie Moreno previously warned that the Clarity Act has to pass by May, but is unlikely to pass after November midterm elections, according to reports. Meanwhile, the Digital Asset Market Clarity Act passed in the House on July, the guiding and establishing national innovation for U.S. stablecoin, or the Genius Act, passed last year. So again, Bitcoin price eases, cryptocurrency stocks retreat. Cryptocurrency stocks generally traded lower on Tuesday following a hotter than expected consumer price index for April, while oil prices rose. The price of Bitcoin traded at around $80,800 Tuesday afternoon, sliding from its Monday high above $82,000. Bitcoin has rebounded more than 7% over the past month, but still remains down about as much so far this year. I'm a big fan of XRP personally. I think a lot of new retail investors, if you're new to the market of crypto, again, XRP is kind of some more powerful technology in my opinion, just because of cross-border payments and, just faster transactions, more transactions per second, 1,500 transactions per second versus Bitcoin's 7. So there's a lot of big things happening with Ripple, XRP, Bitcoin, Ethereum. But really what this means, this entire Clarity Act needs to get passed. It needs to happen. It needs to happen because if it doesn't, you're probably not going to get this passed until 2027 at least. And with that being said, it's just kind of rather important. It creates the regulatory framework for all of these to exist. So that way, banking institutions and then you, the retail investor, can actually benefit from investing in crypto. And you probably make higher yields as well. That's definitely going to impact the prices of crypto and all of your favorite assets. Moving on to the next story. Maryland and Virginia residents under monitoring for Hantavirus, covering it because we have to, right? But at the end of the day, I think the Hantavirus here, this really is, in my opinion, just another version of COVID. I think this is another playbook of COVID. It's really a money scheme. It's all about the vax, right? And that's really what they don't want people to know. That's why every time I post something, any kind of short that I post on my channel about Hantavirus, talking about the same thing, I get 0 views. Eggs, just goose eggs. I get no views when I talk about this Hantavirus thing the way that I'm talking about it now. So maybe go and support my shorts too if you want. So moving on, again, kind of talking about crypto here and everything that's happening with that crypto market. Again, right now a lot is, they're predicting that there could be a market crash. So, hey Grok, is the U.S. stock market about to crash hard in the year 2000? Or like in the year 2000? So we looked at Cisco in the 2000 crash. Then we look at the Nvidia 2026 potential crash. The market, these graphs look very similar. Could be a lot of scare tactics, but it's got 1.1 million views, and I definitely wanted to cover that. Okay. So Grok said, hey, Crypto Rover, that Cisco 2000 versus Nvidia 2026 chart comparison highlights the parallels. Tech hype driving massive run-ups. As of May 11th, S&P 500 hit 7,412 and NASDAQ 26,274 at records. Valuations are stretched. Schiller cape near 40 like .com peak. And Michael Burry warns it feels like late 1999. And if you guys don't know Dr. Michael Burry, he is the man who shorted the entire housing market in 2008. Ended up making like $100 million, cleanest money you could ever make, because he was basically like an asset holder. And that Scion Capital that he was working with ended up pulling $700 million of profits out of that entire fund, while everybody else lost money. Tons of housing and real estate companies went out of business. Mortgage companies went out of business, but they ended up making a lot of money because they shorted the market. AI has real earnings and adoption behind it, unlike 2000 flops, but no one can predict the hard crash. Markets always carry risk, diversify, and focus long-term. NFA. So again, a lot of people are kind of saying there could be a crash potentially. Who knows? I don't really know about that. At the end of the day, we're going to find out. That's for sure. But when we look at the gas prices where they're at, $5 gas prices up here in Michigan, I mean, that's crazy. I don't know where you live or where you're watching from. What are the gas prices where you live? Are they pretty good or are they pretty high? That's pretty crazy, though. And especially, this is even crazier. This is what Donald Trump had to say today. To what extent are Americans' financial situations motivating you to make a deal? And then Trump said, not even a little bit. I don't think about Americans' financial situations. So that's kind of a crazy statement. So what do you think about this clip right here?
To what extent are Americans' financial situations motivating you to make a deal?
Not even a little bit. The only thing that matters when I'm talking about Iran, they can't have a nuclear weapon. I don't think about Americans' financial situation. I don't
Not a
think
good
about
take.
anybody. I think about one thing. We cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon. That's all.
So I don't think about Americans' financial situations, Trump says.
Motivating you to make a deal.
Not even a little bit. The only thing that matters when I'm talking about Iran, they can't have a nuclear weapon. I don't think about Americans' financial situation. I don't think about anybody. I think about one thing. We cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon.
Sounds a lot like Prime Minister Netanyahu, in my opinion. That sounds like it's the same playbook, same script and everything. I mean, I know people don't like me saying that. A lot of people who watch this show are supporters of Trump. I was a supporter 3 times for Trump, so you don't need to tell me. But to see this is just complete betrayal, in my opinion. That's just where I'm standing. This Iran war talk, and listen, the Iranians having a nuclear weapon, that doesn't exist. Okay, Israel has 90 to 200 nuclear warheads, and we're not even allowed to know about it. Okay, you look at all of these different issues that Israel is pushing right now. Right, we have a genocide happening in Gaza. You're not allowed to talk about it. You have a genocide happening in Lebanon on Christian villages. White phosphorus bombs, which is basically sulfuric acid being dropped over the sky that would melt your skin if that was acid rain. Just think about that for a moment. And they say they're taking the southern front of Lebanon really as a security front. That's their statement. They want to use a buffer zone. That's kind of their model, and they're using the Gaza model now. And that is what Netanyahu has said. So who is this war really for? Who is this Iran war for? I think it's for Netanyahu. And I think this is why even the Israelis are going against Netanyahu right now. This is why Netanyahu himself is on trial, and he's probably going to be convicted very soon because of, a lot of the war crimes, but also because of the corruption. Guy literally paid $30 million just to of the Israelis funding. So it's just crazy how much money we've given the state of Israel, $318 billion since 1946. Nobody talks about that. And again, this was Trump's truth statement, his Truth Social statement. When the fake news says the Iranian enemy is doing well militarily against us, it's a virtual treason in that it is such a false and even preposterous statement. They are aiding and abetting the enemy. All it does is give Iran false hope when none should exist. These are American cowards that are rooting against our country. Iran had 159 ships in their navy. Every single ship is now resting at the bottom of the sea. They have no navy. The Air Force is gone. All technology is gone. Their leaders are no longer with us, and the country is an economic disaster. Only losers, ingrates, and fools are able to make a case against America. Listen, I don't want anybody to think I'm talking against America when I'm saying I don't think we should be involved in this Iran war. I take Joe Kent's position on this. I believe that strategically and militarily we could have an alliance with Israel, but we can't have one if they're going to be genociding sovereign nations and sovereign states for this greater Israel project. That's just not going to happen, and it cannot work. It's not in it's not America first. It's not in our best interest as a country. Okay. And so this is what Lindsey Graham had to say today. He had hounded, went berserk on Pete Hegseth today. And so take a look at this clip. This was Senator Lindsey Graham in Congress and just grilling Pete Hegseth.
Mediator is allowing reconnaissance aircraft of Iran to be parked in Pakistani air bases. Do you think that's consistent with being a fair mediator?
I wouldn't want to get in the middle of these negotiations.
Yeah.
I want
Well, I
maximum
do.
efficacy
I
for
want
our
to get in
people.
the middle of these negotiations.
Of course you do, Lindsey
I don't
Graham.
trust Pakistan as far as I can throw them. If they actually do have Iranian aircraft parked in Pakistan bases to protect Iranian military assets, that tells me we should be looking maybe for somebody else to mediate. No wonder this damn thing is going nowhere.
Maybe, maybe not. I don't think he's right about that at all. I think Lindsey Graham is truly just a warmonger, and he's been buddy with Pete Hegseth, and now they're going after Pete Hegseth. Hegseth is now the patsy of the Trump administration. They're going to blame everything on Hegseth. They're going to blame everything on the Dan Bonginos, the Kash Patels. They got grilled today in Congress, and because it's like, really, at the end of the day, I mean, they're all the same. Lindsey Graham, they're all on the same team. But, they got to grill somebody, right? So they're going to grill Hegseth. He's going to be the patsy. Meanwhile, chaos in Moscow as a group of Russians robbed a jewelry store after losing their jobs due to the EU's latest sanctions. Of course, I'm joking. This is Starmer's UK. We're posting this video. Could get you banned from entering the country. Look at that. Sorry. Hold on. Let's open this up a little bit more. There we go. So this is in the UK today. Sorry, that's extremely annoying. This is in the UK. What if this was in the United States? Like, crazy. You look at this, and you would think that this is a third world country. If I were to look at this video as an outsider, as an American, as I watch this, I would never guess that this is the UK. But it is, and it's all because of Keir Starmer's government. It's all because of Keir Starmer letting all of these illegal immigrants into the country. And that's like a huge problem. A little bit of an Alex Jones clip. Russian insider Viktor Bout says that Vladimir Putin is preparing a massive offensive to take a full control of Kiev and other major Ukrainian cities in the near future if NATO does not legitimately come to the peace table.
They're really preparing for the eventually, final assault on Ukrainian position. But this time it must be massive to do the push to finish it, Well, if it's not only Ukrainians, basically Ukrainians has nothing to do with this. And, also President Putin during his presser said that, look, Ukrainians agreed to all proposal, even to give up Donbass territory still in the spring of 2022. But then Boris Johnson came and said, no, you're going to fight further. So this is a situation, and he also mentioned that when Macron called him to say, oh, Ukraine cannot negotiate with a hand gun to his head, so you need to withdraw his troops from Kiev, from the capital. So the president says, yes, we took a decision, we withdrew our troops, and then they flip over again. So we already exhausted all trust. We already exhausted all normal tradition and the way how you deal or negotiate even with the enemies. So since all tables are turns out, what left? Just
so that's what I figured, and I believe you, as you're well connected to smart military man. When Putin said it's going to end soon, he's signaling an escalation, which I would imagine if you look at World War II tactics at the end of the day, it's still boots on the ground. You just lower the artillery down, roll forward, destroy everything, and so the artillery like this is like this.
Yeah, well, the situation that kinetic war, especially what is the problem in the front line, your gray kill zone is quite wide and it's over 30 kilometers, basically 20 miles. So it's very difficult to move your troops conventional way. So this time we're talking about massive, missiles and the drone strike in the, important key centers, the command post, the infrastructure in Kiev, eventually logistic hubs somewhere in Europe, and it must be overwhelming one-time blow, which definitely will at least...
you're talking about decapitation. You're talking about leveling all the command centers that haven't even been hit yet.
And so again, that's just a little bit of an update from Alex Jones, but really a lot of the what's his name? He's the Viktor Bout, and he has been a big Russian. He's been on the Russian side of the negotiation table. And what the Russians have been saying is like, we're going to take Kiev and we're going to end this war. I mean, the Russians have already been winning this war. They've already pretty much decimated a lot of the Ukrainian military. And at the same time, our politicians in Washington, the Lindsey Grahams, want this Ukraine war to keep going because this is a war of attrition. And at the end of the day, this entire Ukrainian war benefits the state of Israel. It benefits the United States. It does. So you have U.S. politicians who are pushing this war. They're allowing this war to continue on when really, I mean, we should be siding with Russia, who is the second greatest nuclear superpower on Earth. It's never made sense that, in my opinion, that Russians should be our enemies. I always believe that Russia should be our ally, personally, and especially given the fact that, again, we are the two greatest nuclear superpowers. So, what is the issue with us being allies? And then, again, the reason I say that is because Ukraine, they're using Ukraine as a proxy, and the United States is fighting Russia as we currently speak, and they're using Ukraine as that proxy to do it. So you got Ukrainian men being ripped into these white vans, and then you got basically nothing but a female population, and now you have illegal immigrants coming into the Ukrainian country, and so all of this is happening. And guess what? We also have the natural resources that are going to be extracted, the lithium, and that's really what America wants. We're thinking about electric vehicles. We're thinking 10, 15, 20 years out. This is what the Trump administration is thinking about. They're thinking about all of this land, and then, of course, if you really know your stuff, you understand that Ukraine is a big part of this greater Israel project. It's not mentioned in the 7 countries within the 5 years that they want to conquer, but it is one of them. It stretches out after Turkey. They want to take Turkey next, and then after that, it would be Ukraine. So if you really look at a map geographically, if you were to look at a globe geographically at Ukraine, let's find it here. So you got Ukraine sitting right here, and then essentially, yeah, there we go. So you got Ukraine here on the map, and really, Russia's already kind of owned Ukraine for a long time, and really, the United States is using Ukraine as a proxy. And what they want, the Israelis, they want to stretch the Greater Israel Project all the way up from here, from the Nile, even Egypt a little bit. Then they want to stretch the Greater Israel Project into Iraq, Iran, Syria. They want, and that's why they want Iran right now. That's like one of the last countries standing. And of course, they want Turkey next. They want Saudi Arabia. They want all of these 7 countries, and then plus they want to keep going into Turkey, and then after Turkey, that stretches into Ukraine. And so that's kind of the thinking of the Israelis, and that's why this entire Ukraine-Russia war benefits the Israelis very much so. And I don't think Trump is being informed of that, or maybe he just knows all about it. One of the two. I'm starting to believe that Trump knows all about it. So personally, that's just my take on it. Elon Musk made a tweet today. SpaceX is considering several locations domestically and internationally to build the world's most advanced spaceports. It's no secret that we intend to launch Starship a lot, targeting thousands of flights per year. That cadence will require the ability to launch from many different locations, so we are currently exploring to find viable sites to expand Starship operations in the future. So again, a lot of the people in the comments are rather excited about it. When I look at it, I'm like, well, I think we could do a lot more right now than just worrying about space. I think we got to worry about our own borders. Like, Elon, come on, help out your own country maybe. But he is, and he's doing his work. I like what Elon has done with Twitter X. I don't like that he's censored a lot of voices that he disagrees with, but at the end of the day, I still think Twitter is one of the most free speech platforms out there that you can find. So again, just more of the breaking news here. See what's in the algorithms. There's a couple of other things. There we go. Representative Tim Burchett bombshell. There's a UFO that has the ability to travel light years. They will put the war pigs out of business. If someone can pierce the veil of government and block access to Congress, who the hell is in control? He says the intelligence community blocked Congress from UFO evidence. Who really holds the power on UAPs? Do you think elected officials are in charge? Yeah, I do.
Denied access to the skiff, and so to my knowledge.
But I also believe this entire alien thing and everything that they're saying about this alien invasion and UFOs, I think this is a way for these government politicians to get themselves out of trouble, to kind of save their own ass, A, and B, it's kind of a distraction. It's a diversion. I really believe that Project Bluebeam is very real, if you've ever heard of that. And this was an entire operation to make the world believe that there was some kind of UFO invasion and some alien invasion that was taking over the world. And again, this would be part of a midst of a disclosure project, but also a midst with a diversionary tactic to use as leverage for war. Okay.
What's going to happen now is not only do we have the support of the chairman, but they're going to get a nice letter from Congress. And as you heard, Representative Ogle said, if we're denied, we're going to use the Holman rule and we'll defund the position.
And I was told by leadership that it was blocked by the intelligence community, not the intelligence committee, but the intelligence community. And that is a very chilling effect. If someone can reach through the veil of government and pierce it to the point of we do not have access to something, you got to start asking yourself who the hell's in control. And I think it'd be wise for you all to start looking at some financial disclosures of some of those corporations, some of the people who do the stonewalling in this town. And that's what we're going to start doing. We're going to start talking to people. We're going to start naming names. Yeah, I want you
I've been hearing that for years on a lot of different subjects, but nothing ever happens.
About this. Think about this, that something with the capabilities of traveling light years, not showing a heat signature, and the energy capabilities of that would put the Pentagon out of business. We wouldn't be fighting these worthless wars overseas over oil, and American boys and girls wouldn't be dying. It would put the war pigs out of business, and they'd have to go somewhere else, and I'm all for that.
Perhaps.
I'm all for that.
Perhaps, or we would just all die, and the aliens would just kill us all. So again, what other news we got here? I'm a goy and I'm a Zionist, this man says. Matthias Daffner, CEO of Alex Springer Southeast, a suspected CIA front, declares himself a Zionist to the World Jewish Congress, then calls for censorship of social media and expulsion of anti-Semites from wherever legally possible. He insists all European countries open their borders to Jewish immigration in the name of diversity. Europe must become more Jewish, Daffner says. He insists Europe, following in the footsteps of the U.S., must force the sale of TikTok due to anti-Semitism on the platform, and then warns against wokeness being a Trojan horse for anti-Semitism and Islamism. Greta Thunberg hardly cares about the carbon footprint anymore, but is increasingly passionate about stoking anti-Semitic prejudice. Daffner says out the full Zionist agenda in the speech, which I've edited down to 6 minutes, and receives a standing ovation from the WJC governing board. We all shall be Zionists, this man says. So take a listen to this clip. Let's just break this down and react to this a little bit.
Why should Zionism be an idea and a goal that only Jews can embrace? I'm a goy, and I'm a Zionist. With all my heart, out of conviction, and with passion. First, we need a zero-tolerance policy towards open hatred of Jews. All anti-Semites in word and deed.
Translation, we need suppression of anybody who's criticizing Israel at all or questioning Israel at all on anything, especially the genocide. They can't say anything. They should never be allowed to talk.
Regardless of their origin, must be expelled wherever legally possible. British politician and Conservative Party leader Kami Badenoch put it clearly and courageously, I quote, anything that's inciting violence against Jews has got to go, quote end. We need this statement and its consequences not only in Britain, but in every democratic country. Second, Europe should introduce preferential immigration and citizenship for Jewish families. In the US, approximately
I think they already do that
7.7 million Jews live. That is 2.2% of the population. In the EU and the UK combined, it is roughly 1 million. That is 0.2% and 10 times less than in America. It is in Europe's own best interest to change that, and it is more than a gesture.
Why? So you can rule over the Europeans that you call Amalek and Edom? The Jews call the Europeans in the United States Edom and Amalek, and they believe that because of the temple that was destroyed, that the Europeans must be destroyed. This is a real theory. This is called the Great Replacement or the Kalergi Plan. But he won't tell you that.
If the idea of a multicultural society is to be taken seriously, then
nobody wants a multicultural society in Europe. It's already multicultural enough, as we can see. We have literally a civil war happening in the country between native Europeans, actual white Europeans, and then invading Islamists, and then invading Jews, okay, who are running a lot of the entire government. They're running everything, and that's always how it's been.
There is an urgent need for greater diversity in Europe. In a Europe where Christian and particularly Muslim influences, increasingly grow. To put claims of tolerance to the test, it is important to make Jewish culture more visible. Europe must become more Jewish. Third, anti-Semitism on social media platforms must be consistently curbed. TikTok in particular is today one of the most dangerous
Translation, we need to censor more people who are questioning Israel.
Propaganda machines for amplifying extremist content. Banned by censorship in China, on an almost unchecked rise in Western democracies, it is by far the most influential information medium for young people. There were in the month following the outbreak of the war 17 times as many pro-Palestinian posts as pro-Israeli ones regarding the war between Hamas and Israel.
Maybe it's because the Israelis are literally in real live time. They are committing a Holocaust on the people of Gaza. That's happening. And they are committing acts like total war crimes. They're dropping white phosphorus bombs over Lebanon. That's sulfuric acid. All of these things are being seen on Twitter X. All of these videos are being shared among the entire world. Yeah, this is why people are very against the Israeli Zionist occupation. Zionist, not all Jews, Zionism, which is a small sect of Judaism. And these people and these Israelis, Mossad, Unit 8200, the Netanyahu government, those in favor of that are the ones causing all of this and perpetrating all of this. And it's leaving a stain on the Israeli people, by the way. So for this Shabbos Goy, and he calls himself a Goy, he says he's not Jewish, he considers himself a Goy. This is the reason countries are losing their sovereignty and independence. He's probably been paid at least a couple, $20 million, $30 million, who knows? But again, I'm just guessing because that seems to be the trend with a lot of, these Zionists or Christian Zionists and Protestant Zionists.
Many of them blatantly anti-Semitic. It is dominated by propaganda full of conspiracy myth.
What does anti-Semitism even mean? They always love to call everybody anti-Semites. What is an anti-Semite? Those who hate the Jews? No. Well, listen. They're calling anti-Semites, they're calling anybody an anti-Semite who's questioning the state of Israel. That's the problem. People who are against this war, people who are against the illegal occupation of Gaza and Palestine and Lebanon and then Turkey and then this entire Greater Israel Project, those who are against that Greater Israel Project, and again, the way that it's being done through a Holocaust, everything that the Jews endured in World War II, they're doing to the Palestinians. And nobody's willing to say that, but it's absolutely true.
It is teeming with calls for violence and open incitement against Jews. But why is nothing being done? Why are we allowing this and the algorithm amplified spread of radical left-wing and radical right-wing content? Every small local newspaper must assume legal responsibility if it has disseminated something false or unlawful. But while TikTok reaches over 2 billion users, the platform bears virtually no responsibility.
It's called freedom of speech, and the Jews just do not understand that. The freedom of speech and press and the freedom of religion, you're not allowed to question the state of Israel or you're an anti-Semite. That's just wrong. You can't label an entire people like that. And so I don't consider myself an anti-Semite. I consider myself a Christian. But I don't consider myself a Zionist at all, by any accord. And I think the Israelis need to be held accountable. There needs to be justice. And, there does need to be a lot of pushback against the state of Israel and what's being done. People need to be willing to speak about it. And I think most people are just scared, so they're not speaking about it.
In America, TikTok has been forced to be sold to non-Chinese owners. Europe should follow this example.
Because it would hurt.
That young people are being manipulated by a platform that must hand over its user data to the intelligence service of a communist dictatorship is a macabre joke of history. Fourth, we must expose woke ideology as a Trojan horse for anti-Semitism and Islamism. Under the guise of decolonization.
He said idolatry there. Do you know what the Jews consider idolatry? Christianity. They consider Christianity idolatry. Catholicism, they consider that idolatry.
Anti-racism and social justice, and above all, green climate activism, pure hatred of Jews is often spread today. Greta Thunberg hardly cares about the carbon footprint anymore, but is increasingly passionate about stoking anti-Semitic prejudice. The woke movement has long been infiltrated and shaped by Islamists. It is engaged.
So again, I don't disagree that the Islamists and the Muslims, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of violence being portrayed in Europe and in the United States. But why? Well, a lot of these countries have been being bombed by Israel. And again, without any, again, for this greater Israel project, genocided, an entire Holocaust happening. So yeah, I mean, of course, these countries are going to, and again, who lets them in? The Jews let them in. The Zionists are the ones opening the borders and letting them in. And that is the main problem here.
The revaluation of all values and the devaluation of the West. For centuries of civilization, the following held true. Successful is better than unsuccessful. Rich is better than poor. Strong is better than weak. Woke now wants to convince us of the opposite and idealizes victims as the new heroes. In a woke society, power lies with those who determine who the victims are. And the toxic woke movement has decided the victims are the anti-Semites. Therefore, be awake against woke. Where in the name of a woke world order, people chant from the river to the sea, where Israel's right to exist is denied, where Jewish students are harassed and attacked on college campuses, that is where the Enlightenment ends.
Like, it's true, but it's not as true as what he's saying. A lot of what that's like, again, anybody who protests the state of Israel in colleges and universities are literally being taken out of college. They're not even allowed to have a degree. They're literally getting in trouble. Some of them, there was one girl who got arrested because she had said F Israel or whatever. Listen, you know, whatever. It's freedom of speech, though. You know, and then this girl, just trying to get her degree, again, lost her entire college education because of it. It's like, is that really freedom of speech, or is that oppression? Is that tyranny?
And where hell begins. Patriotism and Zionism are siblings. Allies of Zionism who are not patriotic in their own country are false friends. Can there therefore be German Zionists? I believe so. They are perhaps those, few as they may be, who have recognized that we can still give our tragic and sad and, yes, I would say, miserable recent history a different turn. A turn towards a powerful democracy, a turn towards genuine freedom, and a turn towards true tolerance. With the awareness...
Tolerance for genocide is what he really wants.
That true tolerance must never, never again be tolerant towards intolerance.
These people are idiots.
We all shall be Zionists. Thank you very much.
No, we shall not. I don't think that's going to happen at all. I actually think there's going to be a reverse effect because of these kind of videos. The Zionists are just not understanding that calling everybody an anti-Semite is not going to solve the problem. Calling everybody who questions the state of Israel and the entire genocide happening in Gaza and Lebanon, that's not an anti-Semite. You know, if you're a researcher, if you're a doctor, if you're, you're an analyst like myself, listen, it's kind of your job to question the state of Israel. And that doesn't make me an anti-Semite. I'm a Christian. I can't be an anti-Semite. You know, I don't hate the Jews. I hate, what's happening right now in Israel. I hate the Zionist sect and what they're doing currently at this current time in history. So that is what, that's what everybody's saying. And this entire labeling everybody an anti-Semite, all that's doing is creating more actual anti-Semitism. And they know that. And so that's why they're creating these databases. And they're using this word anti-Semitism as a Trojan horse to crush your freedom of speech. And it's working. And that's the scariest part. So when we look at all of that, it's very scary stuff. Moving on to the next thing, housing market is going to implode. New reports show that existing home sales numbers are horrific with no signs of rebound. Mortgage rates are too high. Home prices are too high. Low rate homeowners frozen in place, inflation outpacing wages. And as a real estate agent myself, let me tell you, that's all true.
Jeff Sika is with us now. Jeff, you're big in real estate. What do you make of these numbers, first of all? Well, David, I think they're terrible. First off, I think we're in the seasonally strong time for selling
coming
homes.
into it, yeah.
But now this is proving that to the first-time home buyer, this is still a blood-soaked hellscape for them. There's not a lot of inventory. That prices are extremely high, and interest rates are too high. And then you have all the people who are in lower interest rate homes that would want to either trade up, trade down. They're frozen out because rates are so high, and they'd have to take their low interest rate to get a higher interest rate. So the point I'm trying to make is that nothing has changed. This $4 million homes number, because of what we've been through, does not show we've made any improvement in affordability, and there's nothing more important than affordability.
Got to increase that inventory. You mentioned energy prices. How do you think the
it's going to be hard to increase real estate inventory when we're in this Iran war? Okay, I'm just saying. I'm saying right now, as a realtor, Michigan real estate agent, you want to work with me, please do so. It's always a good time to buy real estate, by the way. A lot of, don't let the fear get to you. Always a good time to buy real estate. And at the end of the day, yes, prices are high, interest rates are high, but at the end of the day, seriously, buy land. They ain't making more of it, as they say, right? And that's what Mark Twain said. And I believe that's very true. And at the same time, though, this Iran war is capping, investors. It's making sure like nobody can buy a home, especially the Zoomers. If you're my age, I'm 27 years old. Tough to buy a home today. Tough to invest in real estate if you don't have money already. If you're not already a millionaire. And you want to know where people are already putting their money? People in their 20s and 30s who are not able to get their first home or to really even invest, they're investing in crypto. And that's like the next best place, because really with this Clarity Act and everything that's coming, it's going to create this entire this boom in wealth. And that's what's going to be it's what's going to allow people to actually buy real estate in the future. Okay. And so when I look at all of this, it's absolutely true what he said. Interest rates are way too high. And it is a seller's market now, and it's going to become more of a seller's market, in my opinion. They can say, oh, it's a buyer's market right now. Oh, it's a seller's market. It's going to be a seller's market because people are going to be priced out of their homes. And, people are not going to be able to afford house payments. People are going to be selling their homes in this near future. And as long as we're in this Iran war, the cost of this war is going to cost a lot to the investor, a lot to the first-time home buyer, and to the younger generation. Not good at all.
Spike in energy prices is going to affect travel this summer, which is so important, critical.
Well, David, I look at travel as being, that to me is the gauge of travel, and leisure are the gauge of how the consumer is doing. Because think about it. If you have all your necessities covered, you're going to travel and you're going to spend money on leisure. Now, if you look at travel and leisure, it's been relatively strong because we've had a lot of rebound from the pandemic. Now what we're beginning to see is oil prices not only affect fuel, but they also affect hotel prices. Hotel rates go up. You have food.
But the question is how far these prices will go. So far, we're getting CPI numbers out this week. I believe it's tomorrow. How far will it go? Will these oil prices go and bleeding into the rest of the economy? Obviously, travel is big on it, but will we see it affect the core inflation rate?
It is, because now
hasn't been so far.
Not so far, but there's this lagging element of oil prices, because the longer oil prices stay elevated, you're going to see basic material prices start to elevate. I'm seeing it in my own business when we're involved with construction of any kind. You're seeing lumber, concrete, you're seeing a lot of steel. A lot of those prices are beginning to move up, some faster than others. And the longer this takes, the longer it takes for oil to come down, the more those basic material prices are going to stay high.
All right, Jeff Sika, good to see you, my friend. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, so as a real estate agent myself, again, real estate is tough right now. It's a tough market for the younger generation. It's a tough market for anybody, really, who doesn't already have equity and who doesn't already have the ability to buy real estate or invest in real estate. And so, again, if you are looking to invest in real estate, work with me, Brendan Ecker. I will be your real estate agent. I'm a Michigan real estate agent with the eXp Realty, but I work with luxury investors. I work with commercial investors, help you get that next triple net property. And at the end of the day, again, just go to BrendanEckerRealty.com, schedule a link on the Calendly link right here. I will see it. and then we will talk. We'll talk about your situation. We'll talk about where you're at in real estate, where you're at in your business or your portfolio, or if it's just your first-time home buyer. I'll definitely help you out. Gold Shark Media AI, you can also work with us there. I have that right on the home page. This is for realtors. It's for basically any service business. At med spas, it's for HVAC, roofers. It's basically a CRM, AI CRM, has all the bells and whistles on it. Again, if you want to become a real estate agent, make some more money on the side, maybe not such a bad idea today. One, you'll work with me. I'll help you pass your state licensing exam, make some more money in real estate. Two, with this online course that I created, just press the button, study to become a realtor. It's $99. You keep it forever. It's not a monthly fee. And again, you get 1,300 state exam practice questions, 200 plus vocab terms, chapter lesson ebooks, relevant for all 50 states. So no matter where you live, you can take this and you can use it. Again, 1,300 practice questions. I literally source these from the best resources across the country that's used in every 40-hour real estate course, all of this stuff. And it's structured the same way. Okay, so invest in real estate, work with Brendan Ecker Realty, and I'll help you get started. I work with, again, single family residential. I work with luxury, and then I work with a lot of multifamily or commercial investors. So happy to help you there. And then if you're looking to grow your business, this is what our CRM looks like on the inside. So again, you get a 7-day free trial with Gold Shark Media AI. It's goldsharkmedia.com if you want to find it. But you can control your pipelines, lead capture forms. It's got everything built right into it. It's got a chat widget, booking. You can do your prospecting here, proposals, client workspaces. This is if you need to work, if you're an agency, if you're like us, Gold Shark Media, we kind of do a lot of digital marketing too. Then you could work all your clients, just put them right in here. Your invoices, all stored right here. You got your tasks, again, everything that's overdue, upcoming, or completed, notifications, any kind of new leads that are coming in, communications. You got a social publisher. We're still kind of working on this, refining this at the end of the day, but you are able to link up your Google business profile, your Facebook, your Instagram, your LinkedIn, your X, your YouTube accounts, your TikTok, all really good stuff. You run your entire business from this CRM, and you'll be doing pretty well. Again, we have built-out templates already made for you, okay? And at the end of the day, you can also manage your entire team in here. If you want to have this pretty much tracks all of your reports. We have attribution and ROI. This is basically going to track everything in terms of that. How much revenue is slow follow-up costing you? So again, a lot of what we do here is focus on follow-up. But again, you can track all of your deals. See your ROI calculator right here. That's pretty cool. And on top of that, you also need reviews as a business, so you can manage all your reviews right here, basically your Google reviews. It's basically a review request workflow. It has everything built into it, message templates, reminder tracking. You got an AI assistant here. You got AI app builder. So again, you want to build a lead capture form. If you want to build your own ROI calculator, you want to build a client intake form, you can customize it. You can white label it, put your own logo on there. You can build your own websites. You can host your website. We have a domain guide here. You can also add your own domain. Again, you can literally run your entire online business right here. Okay, Calendly, we have Slack. You can connect to it. Microsoft 365, SendGrid, Twilio SMS. That's for outreach. You have Zoom for all your prospect meetings. You have Google Meet, MailChimp for email, outbound workflow or webhooks, all of that. And then CSV import and export. So that works very well as well. We have scheduling. Again, you can just schedule all your contents or any kind of meetings that are coming up. You got your own CRM setup here, tags, everything to keep track of all of that. We even have our own referral center. I really should apply this affiliate link at the bottom of this description. If you're interested, leave a comment, and you can be an affiliate for Gold Shark Media AI. And so you can make some money in the referral program as well. We have white label software. Again, you can put your brand logo on top of this entire user interface that you're looking at right now. We have a trust center here. This essentially manages data controls, security overview, launch readiness, and export tools. This kind of keeps you on track. It's basically just a checklist of everything you need to get done. Data export. You have your lead CSV. This even tells you how to do everything, your access permissions, your security overflow, what we store and why. All of your information is right here. We have our security and audit, team and people, integrations. Then, of course, you have your help center where this also answers a ton of different questions you might have. So any questions you might have, pretty much answered right here. We have an AI chatbot that's built in as well. Just answer right here. you'll be able to use that. So it's pretty cool. And let me know if you want to use that, and we can get right into that as well. So coming up on the end of the show shortly here, but I do want to check any breaking news soon here. Actually, I wanted to see if there's any other clips here that I wanted to look at. That was interesting. 590,000 people paid $100 deposits for Trump's $499 gold phone. That's $59 million collected. 1 year later, not a single phone has shipped, and now the company quietly removed the guarantees on both deliveries and refunds. Nearly 600,000 people handed over their money, and the fine print no longer promises they get it back or ever get the phone. At this point, the gold phone is starting to look like a GTA 6. That's funny. When is GTA 6 coming out, by the way? I can't wait for that game to come out. I'll play it on a live stream. So again, this is a Tennessee cop getting punched in the head mid-arrest of a suspect when a random bystander jumped in to help him finish the job. Most people would have just filmed it. Greatly done. So again, you have this guy who's totally just resisting the law, just beating the hell out of this cop. And fortunately, somebody comes by and they end up helping to apprehend the suspect. Where is it? Right here. So yeah, they help this cop. Good job, sir. Good Samaritans. But honestly, just breaking this down from a law enforcement perspective, I mean, if you got somebody who's coming at you like this, if you're a police officer, you have somebody attacking you, then I guess you can try to tase him first, but he's punching you in the face. I mean, shoot him. You know, that's deadly force. That's the deadly force continuum. You have to go a level above their level of violence. I mean, that's just the way it goes, unfortunately. But, you know, that's the only way you're going to protect yourself as a police officer when you have somebody like this, you know. Just wanted to break that down a little bit. How important it is to remain, aware of what's going on at all times. Italy just shut down for Palestine. Nationwide general strike in 75-plus cities. Millions flood the streets of Milan, Naples, and Florence and Turin. Country completely paralyzed for 24 hours. Transport, schools, ports, logistics all stopped. Port workers blocked arms shipments to Israel. Police fired tear gas in Milan after crashing with protesters near the central station. Why? Maloney refused to recognize Palestine. The people said no more. Their demands: recognize the state of Palestine, halt all arms sale to Israel, sanctions on Netanyahu's government, end the genocide in Gaza now. So I think the Muslims are wrong to act this way. Palestinians, you're in somebody else's country. Don't be acting this way in somebody else's country. You know, I understand completely that there is a brutal genocide happening in, your country of Palestine. I understand that, it's all brutal. But at the end of the day, it's not your country. And Maloney has been completely a friend to Palestine. She has completely been resisting the United States and Israel in many different accords. So, it's just wrong the way that the Palestinians and that these Muslims are really treating these home countries. Really all these European countries, soon to be the United States. It's definitely out of line. Come on. It's like stay in your country and fight for it at the end of the day, or it's like, assimilate to the culture that you're going to move to and migrate to. And if you can't assimilate, then you should go back home. And, I understand that we're in a war, but you can't, it's just unacceptable. Russell Brand said, wow, to Dominic Trzynski, the MEP, this is what communism looks like in the 21st century. I have just been denied entry into the UK in order to speak at the largest patriotic event in Europe. Starmer will be sued by me, not the government, not the Home Office. So again, people are getting sued in Europe for just exercising their rights. FBI Director Kash Patel and Senator Chris Van Hollen argue over who is more of the drunk, apparently. So let's look at this clip.
And so there have been no occasions when your security detail had difficulty waking or locating you. Is that right?
Nope, it's a total farce. I don't even know where you get this stuff, but it doesn't make it credible because you say so.
I'm not
SNL is so. Saturday Night Live is so going to clip this. They're so going to make a clip of this.
Patel, it's been written and documented.
You are literally saying it.
No, I'm saying that these are reports, Director Patel.
No,
and
unlike your baseless reports, the only person that was slinging margaritas in El Salvador on the taxpayer dollar with a convicted gangbanging rapist was you. The only person that ran up a $7,000 bar.
Why is this guy laughing though? Like this dude on the left. Senator Van Hollen, why is he laughing about that? It's like it's an inside joke to them.
Bar tab in Washington, D.C. at the lobby bar
to
was you. So
this
the only individual in this room that has been drinking on taxpayer dime during the day is you.
Director Patel, come on. These are serious allegations that were made against you. They're
the allegations are false.
You filed.
You drinking margaritas with a gangbanger is true and on video.
Just goes to show you
running a $7,000 bar tab at the lobby bar has been filed by your own office.
This goes to show
drink during the day. That's you. This is the ultimate example of hypocrisy.
Mr. Chairman,
I will not be tarnished by baseless allegations and fraudulent statements from the media.
The fact that you mentioned that
pretty
indicates
good.
You don't
stood up for
know
himself
what
pretty well
you
there.
are talking about. Now here, Director
The only thing I know is you're the one drinking margaritas with felons.
Actually, that's a false statement, and I'm asking you about your statement.
Oh, so he's just committing perjury? See, it's like they're all on the same team. Patel and Senator Chris Van Hollen, they're all on the same team. And they're all doing the same stuff when, you know, the cameras aren't on them. And that's just like something I think people need to really recognize. Dutch protesters have set fire to the new asylum center in Ludrecht. So this is what's going on in the Netherlands. They are burning the centers for the asylum centers. This is really how, you know, it should be handled when you have invaders occupying your government, though. 100%. You know, as much as I have sympathy and empathy for the Palestinian people and these Arabs that are being completely targeted by the Israelis, this is not the way, you should be treating. You know, the Dutch people are a peaceful people, and they're not doing this for no reason, you know. And so you see all this happening for a reason. This is the protest of the Netherlands people. Again, against the asylum, the mass migration movement that's being pushed onto these countries in Europe. So it's very sad to see. But at the end of the day, this is a country. This is the Netherlands. They're fighting for their sovereignty, and the native people, the native Dutch people, are not having it. They're not going to have these invaders coming in there, stabbing their women, stabbing and raping their children. Not happening. And so this is a real protest. At the end of the day, you could call this inciting a riot, whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, we can't have our countries being invaded by foreign occupiers and do nothing about it. So the Netherlands are a good example of how you handle foreign occupiers, in my opinion. Again, I don't condone any kind of violence or anything, but at the end of the day, at some point you have to fight back. Okay, Greeks do not want migrants in their country. Patriots from Greece are doing everything possible to stop invaders from reaching the shores of Greece. There's no way. There's no other way. Stopping them from sailing any further. The Greeks are saying no to mass migration, mass illegal migration, we should call it. And they're fighting for their sovereignty. And this is how migrants should be handled when they are invading and they don't seek to assimilate. When migrants don't seek to assimilate to your lands, yes, you cannot just let them in, driving in on boats like this. You know, pop the boat. You know, at the end of the day, swim back home. And for the ones that they had to drag in, this is what happened. This is the way they treated them. But this is what happens when you invade a country. This is what happens. Don't go invading a peaceful society as an immigrant and thinking that you can just stay for free and live off of the welfare system of that country, and that's how you're going to be treated. And, you know, that's how every other country treats invaders. So it's like, don't invade these countries. Meanwhile, Tyler Oliveira got banned from Israel and deported back to America for anti-Semitic content. So again, the Israelis are talking about multiculturalism and how we all need to be free and we all need to be together. But then Tyler Oliveira, who's a powerful YouTuber, he made the Lakewood, he's famous for the Lakewood, New Jersey expose on the Hasidic Jews in that community. And then suddenly he's been barred and deported back to America when he tried to make a YouTube video on this. So I wonder if he's going to make any kind of YouTube video about this trip here. But I thought that was really interesting. He said he was going to go and try to make a trip into Israel about 4 weeks ago, maybe a month ago or so. And here we have it. Today, he was banned from Israel and deported back to America for anti-Semitic content. Like, okay, come on. And by the way, this guy is not an anti-Semite. If you don't know who this YouTuber is, this guy is not an anti-Semite. Highly intelligent, definitely high IQ, and he's got some real balls, honestly. This dude is famous for investigating some really dangerous places throughout the world. Very powerful YouTube channel. So that's pretty much all the news we have for today. We'll cover more of this news tomorrow. But what do you guys think about everything going on? What do you guys think about the Iran war, the Strait of Hormuz? What do you guys think about all of it? Do you think we are going to be in a forever war with Iran? Do you think that we're going to be getting ourselves out of this war, or do you think that we're going to be stuck in this war for a long time? What do you think is going to happen with the Clarity Act? What do you think is going to happen with all of it? The markets, what do you think? At the end of the day, I think we're going to be in this war for a long time. I see oil prices going far beyond $200 a barrel. And at the end of the day, I also see there potentially being a stock market crash also, maybe even a real estate crash. We'll see what happens. But stay prudent, stay powerful, stay wealthy, and I'll be back tomorrow to cover the news.